Introduction to electric charges. Have you ever observed the balloon decoration at parties? If you have, you would have noticed that the balloons can also stick to the walls, without the use of any glue or adhesive. Have you ever wondered how this happens? A balloon, when rubbed on its surface, with some sort of materials like wool or even our hair, gets electrically charged due to the transfer of electrons, which then attracts the positive charges of the material brought into contact. And this is the same reason why we hear a crackle when we take off our synthetic clothes or sweater, especially in dry weather. Are you curious to know how this charge transfer occurs and the reason behind it? This video on electric charges will give a clear idea about it. At the end of the lesson, you will be able to explain electric charges. Electric charges. Historically, the credit of discovery of the fact that amber rubbed with animal fur attracts light objects, like small pieces of leaves, or dust, goes to Thales of Miletus, Greece, around 600 BC. It was thought that amber had this special property of attracting lighter objects. Later people found that not only amber, but even a glass rod rubbed with a silk cloth attracted pieces of paper. It was observed that, if two glass rods rubbed with silk cloth are brought close to each other, they repelled each other. Similarly, if the two plastic rods rubbed with wool are brought close to each other, they repelled each other. But if the glass rod is brought near the plastic rod, they attracted each other. If a plastic rod rubbed with wool is made to touch two small pith balls, or polystyrene balls, suspended by silk or nylon thread, then the balls repelled each other, and are also repelled by the rod. A similar effect is found if the pith balls are touched with a glass rod rubbed with silk. A dramatic observation is that a pith ball touched with the glass rod attracts another pith ball touched with a plastic rod. From these observations, we can infer that the charging of the glass rod and that of the plastic rod are different from one another. The charged glass rod repels another charged glass rod, which implies that like charges repel each other. The charged glass rod attracts the charged plastic rod, which implies that unlike charges attract each other. Thus, there are two kinds of charges that exist in the universe. In the 18th century, Benjamin Franklin called one type of charge as positive, and the other type of charge as negative. If an object possesses an electric charge, it is said to be electrified or charged. A simple apparatus, called a gold-leaf electroscope, can detect charges on the body. It consists of a vertical metal rod, housed in a box or bottle, with two thin gold leaves attached to its bottom end. When a positively charged object touches the metal knob, at the top of the rod, the electrons in the metal of electroscope are attracted to the positively charged object, and move upward out of the leaves. This makes the leaves to be positively charged, and because like charges repel, the leaves move away from each other. The degree of divergence is an indicator of the amount of charge that exists in the leaves. To understand how the electroscope works, use the white paper strip. Fold the strip in half, so that you make a mark of the fold. Open the strip, and iron it lightly with the mountain fold up, as shown. Hold the strip by pinching it at the fold. You will notice that the two halves move apart. This shows that the strip has acquired a charge on ironing. When you fold it in half, both the halves have the same charge. Hence, they repel each other. The same effect is seen in the gold-leaf electroscope. So, now let us first try to understand why material bodies acquire charges. Although normally the materials are electrically neutral, they do contain charges, but their charges are exactly balanced. To electrify a neutral body, we need to add or remove electrons having a negative charge. When we say that a body is charged, we always refer to the excess or deficit of electric charges. In solids, the electrons, which are less tightly bound in the atom, are the charges that can be transferred from one body to the other. A body acquires a positive charge by losing some of its electrons. Similarly, a body acquires a negative charge by gaining some electrons. No new charge is created in the process of rubbing, but a transfer of electrons occurs from one body to the other. Also, the number of electrons that is transferred is a very small fraction of the total number of electrons that exists in the material body. Conclusion. From this, we infer that there are only two kinds of charges in nature, and they are called a positive charge and negative charge. And the two kinds of electrification are, like charges repel, and, unlike charges attract each other. And this is how the balloons are electrically charged, and get attached to the walls without any adhesive. Summary. This brings us to the end of the lesson. In this lesson, we have learnt about the origin of electric charges. Then, we have discussed how materials like glass, plastic rubbed with silk, and wool respectively, attract objects like pithballs and paper. In which, we demonstrated that like charges repel each other, and unlike charges attract each other. Then we illustrated how to detect the charges acquired by a body, with the help of a simple apparatus called a gold leaf electroscope. And finally, we learned that a neutral body could be electrified either by the addition or removal of negatively charged electrons.